Good evening, everyone. I'm Wanda Wilson with Oakland Planning and Development. Welcome to the Oakland Community-Wide meeting for February. Happy to see all of you here. And we have a full agenda tonight of 3 presentations. And we'll give you a few updates as well. We have Carlow University presenting their institutional master plan, presentation on a proposed housing development in Panther Hollow at Boundary Street in Yarrow Way, and some renovations to UPMC's buildings on 5th Avenue that are offices for Children's Hospital medical offices. So those are our 3 presentations, and given our packed agenda, we'll get started. We do have some updates if we can go to the next slide. Again, I want to reiterate that we have a program available for senior homeowners in Oakland, people who might need some assistance with home repairs or improvements to their home to assist aging in place comfortably. Please get in touch with us and let us know you're interested or you can use that assistance. It's a great resource for homeowners. So be in touch with us about that, and I could tell you more about it. We're also running Bridges to Career Opportunities, which is a great program to connect job seekers to great curriculum of information and training for careers that you could actually do remotely. And the training is also remote. So our staff is providing a whole 8-week training program that's free. And we can still take people for the current session, and then we're running another one later in the spring. And if you need help shoveling snow, give us a call, or you can email our intern Amelia. You could also just give us a call or email the main questions to let us know, and we'll connect you to somebody who can help you shovel your snow. Next slide. We have lots of great resources for food supports in the neighborhood. So we have them all listed here. And an additional one that we're very pleased is now serving Oakland is the Green Grocer, which is a program of the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank. So very pleased to have that, as well as Community Human Services, the Fraser Fieldhouse Food Distribution, the Islamic Center, St. George has a food pantry, and the Pitt Pantry, which are all really great resources. We want to make sure people are aware of that. So if there's a neighbor that you know could benefit from this, please get the word out. But these are great resources in the neighborhood for food supports. Some other things that are going on that aren't on tonight's agenda but are relevant updates is you may have heard some discussion related to the bus rapid transit plan, that there's a layover being proposed near the Boulevard of the Allies and Craft. And as soon as we know about a meeting with the details, OTMA is trying to coordinate a community meeting about that. We'll let everybody know. At this time, it hasn't yet been scheduled. And today, Pitt began giving briefings to the Planning Commission on their IMP. They're going to do several briefings, and then they'll announce when the hearing will occur. There'll also be, I believe, 4 weeks in between the last briefing and the hearing. So as we know those schedules, we'll update our information, let everybody know about that. River Life is hosting a community meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. We have a link there if you're interested in getting involved in that public process for an initiative about the riverfronts. And we have an opportunity for people to provide feedback to the City Department of Mobility and Infrastructure on some mobility hub resources that they're considering getting feedback on various locations that would provide additional mobility hubs in Oakland. So there's a web link there. You can also just contact us if you'd like to get more information about that. And just to remind folks how we'll organize these 3 presentations and how we want to be able to have everyone have input and be involved. We will allow the presenters to go through their presentation, and then both either on Facebook, we are live on Facebook now, and I'll be tracking those comments, and in the chat feature here on Zoom, would be a couple of ways that you can type questions or comments that will, we will read to the presenters. And if there's somebody on the phone or somebody who isn't able to use the chat feature, after we go through the questions in the chat, we'll be able to allow an opportunity for somebody on the phone to have a question. So we'll do that for each of the presentations that we have tonight. And we also have feedback forms available on our website. You could provide additional feedback and input, or if somebody that missed the meeting, and would like to review the information and provide feedback. We'll have information about that at the last slide on our presentation for the meeting tonight at the end. And if speakers, when it is your opportunity to present, you can go ahead and turn your video on and unmute yourselves. Otherwise, if people can stay muted, that just helps us not have background noise for the meeting tonight. So I think we'll roll right into, I would have one other update that's not on the slides, but I just finished a very long Planning Commission hearing where the 3500 Forbes Avenue presentation was before the Planning Commission, and Planning Commission has continued that. They didn't act on that presentation and proposal. They're going back March 23rd. There were several design concerns, some of which OPDC reiterated based on feedback we heard about that, as well as others who were providing testimony at that hearing. So as we know more about that and any changes, we'll let everybody know and update the project page on the website. So now we'll move to Carlow, who has presented, recently, a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I believe. But before they go to Planning Commission, we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to view the scope of their IMP rather than only part of it. So, so they're back with a more comprehensive overview of the institutional master plan at the presentation tonight. So I'll turn it over to David Meadows and Emily Gaspich from Carlow University.
Thank you, Wanda. Am I able to do a screen share because we've reordered our presentation?
Typically not. I guess it's up to my colleague Kathy, but and I would like to acknowledge my appreciation for my colleague Kathy, who's organizing everything for us tonight. So thank you, Kathy, very much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. Okay, thank you. As mentioned, my name is Emily Gaspich. I'm the Director of Capital Planning. I'll be presenting this evening with Cindy Jampol from Trans Associates, who I'm sure you're all familiar with. And I also have David Meadows with me, who is our CFO and Senior Vice President of Finance and Administration, as well as Sean Nelson, who is Dr. Mellon's Chief of Staff, to help field any questions after the presentation. Carlow's foremost goal and priority now and in the future is to grow and retain the enrollment of worthy students suited to the academic challenges of Carlow. This master plan will assure that Carlow continues to provide the best in-class interdisciplinary education we are known for in healthcare, education, and life sciences. Our institutional master plan is about getting back to our innovative roots. In 1843, the Sisters of Mercy came from Carlow, Ireland. They founded St. Mary's Academy, which was a school for girls on Webster Avenue in the Hill District. They founded Mercy Hospital in 1848, which was the first teaching hospital in the region. And obviously they founded Mount Mercy College in 1929, which was the first baccalaureate level education for women. And I just find this, again, particularly innovative because I came from a family where my grandmothers didn't get much farther than middle school. So we definitely belong in the innovation district. Our university is very different from other universities in the region, not just size. Carlow has 2,000 students. Duquesne and CMU are between 10,000 and 15,000. Pitt has about 35,000. So our size makes us different, but our population makes us different as well. We still have 40 innovators, Sisters of Mercy, on site. We also have approximately 1,800 students at this point in time. 40% of our students do come from the city, and around 40% are Pell eligible, which is an indicator of financial need, and many are first-generation college students. We also have the campus laboratory school on campus, servicing kindergarten through 8th grade, as well as our early learning centers and Montessori school, which have the pre-K children. So a very diverse population here. The purpose of us being here tonight is to review our institutional master plan. An institutional master plan is a plan for growth and resiliency. As you can see, we've been out to public meetings, whether through OPDC or up at Friendship Church in West Oakland several times. We hope to be in front of the Planning Commission for our hearing in May. Our briefing will probably be in April, and in front of City Council in June. An institutional master plan is a framework for development of institutions such as hospitals and colleges, which control large areas of land within the city. And the city recognizes that the institutions are unique because they generally contain greater density of development than the surrounding areas. They're sources of substantial employment, and they're usually located immediately adjacent to residential neighborhoods. So the institutional master plans allow the institutions flexibility to plan and develop projects and campus-based standards for building height, mass, parking, urban design, neighborhood compatibility, etc. It's a high-level planning document. There will be points in the future where we will come back to the neighborhood for specific projects such as the P3 when we have that level of design and detail to present the project as it goes through the city permitting processes. I'm going to go over the institutional master plan components this evening. They are based on best practices that city planning has set up, and they cover a range of topics from sustainability, public art, growth. There will be a component on our 10-year development plan where we talk about rezoning and some of the projects that we have planned over the next 10 years. And then we'll talk about our community benefits as well. Our plan is in the process of being reviewed by City Planning for technical components. We've been told that a recommendation for approval will be made with several conditions. Some of those conditions are wider sidewalk in front of our 5th Avenue development. And we're very excited to provide 15 feet wide sidewalks so that we could fit trees and allow pedestrians to have comfort in an area where there's going to be a well-used BRT station. And they've asked us for a little more detail on the massing of our P3. So that's why it was important to share the screen, because we just got some of that information today. With respect to sustainability, we are in the 2030 district, so we've used those guidelines to establish our targets and identify strategies that we would use to meet those targets. Per the city ordinance, we are required to report our utility usage through Portfolio Manager every year. And our sustainability goals will be met through a variety of small, achievable, easily achievable projects like switching out to LED lights, switching over to low flow plumbing fixtures, as well as much larger projects such as making sure that building envelopes are sealed in terms of repointing brick, replacing windows, upgrading HVAC systems, looking at renewable energy, both purchasing offsite as well as trying to incorporate some on-site. Preserving the tree canopy is, considered a sustainable measure, and we're very excited to continue to do that. We're also looking at different partnerships that we can participate in. The Uptown Eco Innovation District is trying to figure out ways to bring more composting resources to Oakland. So that's just an example of a strategy that we would use to help meet our waste goals. With respect to stormwater and landscape, I know that stormwater with the consent order in the area is a huge issue. This was actually my background before Carlow. It's important to note that when we do individual projects and have to go for permits, we will be required to plant street trees for new development, and we will be required to submit a stormwater management plan that is reviewed by the city as well as PWSA. And depending on the acreage that we disturb and the soil makeup, perhaps if there was a use previously on the site that considers it brownfields, we may have to go through the county and state for that review as well. So there will definitely be second levels of checks and balances as we move from the targets and strategies into design of actual projects. Public art is another topic that is discussed in the institutional master plan. We are looking for ways to place more art in pedestrian paths, recognize artists. Jasmine Cho has been on national TV. I talk about her at all the presentations because Gail King interviewed her, and she actually helped participate in the design of our University Commons balcony. So we're very proud of that. Our art gallery is open to the public. The website is listed there to check the hours of operation or schedule a tour. They could be private tours on Wednesday. So we're very excited. We want people to come to campus and walk around and enjoy some of the things that we have on site. With respect to anticipated growth, that's another area that we're expected to speak to in the institutional master plan. We want to capitalize on what's been happening in Oakland for many, many years now. In higher education, there's a discussion around the higher ed cliff, which simply means that since 2007, there have been less college age traditional students being born because of lower birth rates. So the percent of college age students in 2025 is expected to decline. The pandemic has exacerbated that. So Carlow has been looking at this and trying to determine ways to become resilient and react to that cliff. And one of the ways that we're doing that is focusing on our graduate level programs and adult learners, and really leveraging our healthcare programs and our life science programs so that we can become a formidable member in the innovation zone. We're very excited because this past November, we were actually invited to participate in a panel that Innovate Pittsburgh had with many of our neighbors, UPMC, CMU, Pitt, that was that had international participation. So we're very excited that we're getting to be seen as one of the players in the Oakland Innovation District. And our plan for success depends on the ability to grow these adult and graduate student enrollment over the next year. And it's important to note that Carlow sends about 30 to 40% of their graduates back into the regional workforce, going just 30 to 40% go into UPMC and the Allegheny Health System as employees. And one thing that I want to address here with growth, because I know it's a major concern of the community, we do not have any plans to build new housing. Right now, we have approximately 478 beds in our dorm, with approximately 330 of those beds that are taken, that are full. And we're actually looking at ways to right size our dorms, put more amenities in there for the students that do live there. If we do need to grow our residential capacity in the future, there are some buildings on the Sisters of Mercy portion of the campus that are already built for residential purposes, and we would probably just capitalize on that opportunity so that we don't have to put any new construction for housing into the neighborhoods. Part of the institutional master plan is making sure that all of our property is zoned educational, medical, institutional. And this is something that the city requires and the city has set up, understanding that educational and medical institutions need to be able to grow and expand while minimizing adverse impacts to their neighboring communities. So as part of the institutional master plan, we rezone everything that we own to educational, medical, and institution zoning. And we have the institutional master plan that is a part of that, that again addresses adverse impacts and has strategies to minimize and mitigate those impacts. Our 10-year development envelope, we do have some placeholders for renovation of some of our existing buildings, but the main projects that are priorities for the university are the redevelopment of the St. Agnes School. We hope to relocate our early learning center there, and our P3 development site at the corner of 5th Avenue and Robinson. It's important to note that this is not a building footprint. It is just an indicator for the development site. And this presents an incredible economic development opportunity for the Pittsburgh Innovation District, and one that can be transformative to this area of the city. Some of the other projects that we have planned in the 10-year development envelope are demolition and improvements to the Perry Funeral Home site. And I'm going to go through some slides now that show these projects a little more specifically. Again, we recently purchased this property in May of this year, and once the institutional master plan is approved, we'll be able to demolish this building. Our goal is to make the site as flat as possible. There's a pretty substantial retaining wall in the north, or I guess this would, in this corner that my cursor is pointing to, there's a pretty substantial retaining wall there. And there's a significant amount of earthwork that needs to be done to the site to make it buildable. We do hope to put a playground there that would be shared with the community, as well as used by our early learning center. We anticipate that the community would be able to use it in the evenings and on weekends. And we're in the process of fundraising for this project. Our St. Agnes School is where we hope to move our early learning center and Montessori school, which is the pre-K program. We currently have around 20 children in our program, and relocating here would allow us to grow that program to more than 80 students. And this is a very exciting opportunity for us because our Department of Education has received grant money related to an apprenticeship program that enables us to grow to 80 students. And it's one of the first in the nation. It will actually be used as an example of how other institutions can educate and create a pipeline of early childcare providers, as well as increase the amount of teachers of color in that pipeline. This is our 5th Avenue development. And again, this is just a massing. We do not have any designs yet, but as part of the master plan, the city is very interested to know what our design guidelines are, what our materials are, our setbacks, our height, our sustainability goals. So those are the types of things that we're expected to provide some information for. And because this is such a large site, they wanted to see some ideas of how we would break up the building so that it's not one massive structure. So this is an idea that we are contemplating right now, but you can see how we would try to, toward the eastern side of the site, we would try to have the building be as high as some of our existing buildings on campus. But toward the western portion of the site, we would step it down so that it is more compatible with the residential scale of the neighborhood. There would be greening around the site, again, to make the pedestrian experience more positive. And we do want to build vibrancy. We want to create density in this area. We want to create foot traffic. We want this to be a space where the ground floor is transparent and there's businesses that can be there for everyone to patronize, coffee shops, cafes. We want to put this expanded plaza here so that not everybody is crammed at the bus rapid transit station. We do believe that the bus rapid transit station will be on the far side of the intersection with Craft and Fifth. And we have had conversations with the Port Authority about the location there and about wanting to create some more space for spillover. Our development timeline right now is that we are in the process of negotiating with developers and doing some additional due diligence on site. We hope to be able to make an announcement and begin design by July of this year. And that would start an entirely new outreach process with the community. We would be coming to you with conceptual plans, schematic plans, design development plans. So there would be a whole new process around outreach for the design of the building. We hope to start construction in July of 23 with occupancy by August of 2025. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Jampol of Trans Associates. And Cindy, when you need me to advance to the next slide, just say next, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Cindy Jampol from Trans Associates, and we've performed the transportation study, which addresses mobility in all its various forms. This first slide shows the study area that was required by the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure and the Department of City Planning and Zoning for study of the campus. And all of the dots that you can see are the study intersections and driveways that were part of the study. The little traffic signals indicate intersections that are signalized. Green dots are site driveways, and blue dots are unsignalized study intersections. What we did was collect data at all of these locations pre-COVID and perform analyses in the methodology approved by the city to see what the impacts would be of the elements of the Carlow institutional master plan while blending in the changes that will be implemented as part of the BRT project by Allegheny County. Next slide, please. We also took a look at the parking on the site, and if you're familiar with it, there are several parking lots that are located on the site. Lot A is located right across from Craft Avenue and is contained in the P3 site that's shown in purple on this drawing, as well as Lot B, which is up along Terrace. Lot C is along Terrace. Lot D is next to the St. Agnes School. New parking will include about a 13-space Lot E, which is on the west side of Robinson Street. It's currently a parking lot, but would be improved and brought into compliance with zoning for use for parking. And with the development of the P3, as Emily had described, this is kind of a placeholder for what could happen on the site. And we've estimated that about maybe that garage, a garage that could be located there might be about 330 spaces, but what Carlow is hoping for is 75 spaces that would be designated for Carlow use, with the remainder.
Interrupt, but can somebody, whoever's running the screen, can you like put the mouse over whatever she's talking about? Because I can't read any of that.
Oh, okay. Here, I'll try to help you again. At Lot A, point out where Lot A is in the purple. There we go. It's right there right now. And when the P3 development happens, Lot A would be reconfigured to become part of the P3 development. And it's anticipated there might be, say, 330 spaces on the site, 75 of which is what Carlow is hoping to have available for their use. Lot B, let's go up to Lot B. There it is. That's existing, and that's accessed via Terrace Street and will remain as is. Lot C, also along Terrace Street, is expected to stay as it is. And then a new parking lot would be Lot E, which is on the west side of Robinson Street. It's currently used as a parking lot, but will be improved and brought into compliance with zoning, with landscaping, paving, pavement marking, etc., for approximately 13 parking spaces. So the change in parking down in Lot A is that some of the parking numbers will be reduced. That parking is actually used for valet parking now. And one of the parts of the master plan transportation study is the development of transportation demand management. And we don't intend to provide gazillions of parking spaces, but rather show people and encourage and reward people for other methods of transportation than the single occupant vehicle, especially given the location of this project, its proximity to the BRT and possibilities for walking and other bus connections. Next slide, please. Looking at all of our analysis, just to give you an idea, once again, the P3 development is now it's an orange block, but it was a purple block in the previous slide. That is, here we have an estimation of how that'll be accessed. There is presently a driveway from that site, from Lot A onto Fifth Avenue, opposite Craft Avenue, and it's contained within the traffic signal at Fifth, Craft, and the site driveway. And let's see, the driveway for the P3, the logical place to put it is right back in the same place as where it is now, contained within the traffic signal there. The Lot E, which is an electric green there, is about 13 spaces, and that would be controlled with a stop sign on the driveway approach to Robinson Street. Then as far as other access around the St. Agnes Pool and the P3 development, this is simply a concept showing access for loading to the P3 site via the southernmost part of Robinson Street. That's that little two-way flow there. And also circulation around the back of the building for passenger cars. And once again, this is just a concept and will be revisited in detail when the P3 development is underway and starts coming through the community process.
And part of the reason that we have the access shown behind the building is because we're sensitive to the need for the community to keep traffic off Robinson Street to the extent possible. And with the Early Learning Center, that would just be one mechanism that we would use to help make some of those mitigations.
Okay, and that'll be worked through, and I'm sure that you're going to be seeing a lot more of that with respect to turning movement controls and controls as to who can use the access points and when. And it's really not possible to conceptualize all of the details at this time because the development there's not a concept for the development. There's just an envelope for where it will be.
And similar to the stormwater management plan, the developer will do a more detailed traffic impact study that will be submitted to the city at the time that they submit the building plans and other permit type documents.
Right, and that'll require a whole transportation impact study to be done, working all the way through the process and through all of the community coordination, as well as working with DOMI, with zoning, and very detailed review of the actual plans because things will be developed at that point. That may be my last slide.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Cindy mentioned that we would be developing a transportation demand management plan. We do include some of those details in the IMP. Some of the areas where we feel like we will get the biggest bang for our buck are working with Oakland stakeholders to continue to advocate for combined shuttle service, shared offsite parking areas that are already in use down on 2nd Avenue or at Southside Works, and direct shuttle and bus routes out to the suburbs. Again, with the cohesion with the bus rapid transit plans, we would want larger plaza space, wider sidewalks to make mobility and transit more incentivized for people to use. We were working on a remote work policy prior to the pandemic, and we are now extending this remote work policy for non-student facing departments. So reducing the amount of people that need to be on campus is a huge win for us. We're looking at continuing to increase our parking rates so that it is cheaper to use transit than park in Oakland. Establishing an agreement with the Port Authority for the UPass program. Currently, only CMU, Pitt, and Chatham are part of that. Other universities such as CCAC, Duquesne, and ourselves are in the next round of negotiations with the Port Authority. And we're also looking for partnerships so that we can let faculty and staff know when there is housing available in the neighborhood, so that we can help promote more owner-occupied residences in the neighborhood and reduce those vehicle trips. With our community benefits, so this is similar to all of the other components of the institutional master plan, where we received targets from the community and we have strategies to address those targets, but there is still work to be done in making sure that we have details and performance metrics tied to all of these different community benefits. The most important thing that we've heard, and again, this is getting back to our innovative roots, is increasing the educational opportunities through neighborhood specific scholarships. We are actually working with the corner to develop a concept paper that can be used to help fundraise for scholarships that would allow children to attend kindergarten through 8th grade in the campus school. It would enable neighborhood children to participate in our summer camps. And when the Early Learning Center gets expanded, it would also translate into early learning daycare scholarships. We've been asked to help enforce safe neighborhood streets. So our police department does currently monitor the intersection at 5th and Robinson to help deter people from making the illegal left turn. That should be eliminated when the BRT is put in, but we continue to be out there anyway. And we will continue to become an advocate for traffic calming on Robinson and Terrace Street. And we know there are challenges with that traffic calming, such as the slope of the hill, the lack of curb reveal, but we will continue to do what we can and work with the city to come up with solutions to help remedy that. Employment opportunities was another huge ask. We do have all of our job postings online. under career opportunities. We also have associated MWDBE goals with the new P3 project. We believe that that will be our biggest opportunity to create jobs for the community. We did get the list of MWDBE firms from both the county as well as the state office. We made those firms aware of the RFP. And we're very confident that we will at least meet or exceed the county's goals, which are 15%. And we're also looking at ways to create our own policy so that we can carry that forward in some of the smaller renovation projects that we have planned on campus. Also, as part of our P3 request for proposal, we've asked the development team to have job fairs prior to construction to make opportunities for people in the community. Shared recreational space was another ask. We've already talked about the Perry site. We're fundraising for that, and that is another opportunity that we're very excited about to share some recreational space with the neighborhood. And as soon as we can get the funding to do that and our IMP gets approved, we will be able to pull that demolition permit and take the funeral home down. There have been areas of just basic needs that have been brought to our attention. So for social work, we will have a wellness and resource center for first responders in the new P3 building. And this will be geared toward helping first responders manage stress, anxiety, and de-escalate situations, and understanding the trauma associated with stressful events. And the community gets stressed as well. And so we are going to have the Wellness and Resource Center open to the community. We are going to foster relationships between the community and the first responders. We have some ideas of programs that we can put on for that. And in this area of COVID and the fact that the Wellness and Resource Center will not be open until August of 25, we are going to have educational seminars between now and then so that we can relationship build with the first responders, with the community, and between the first responders and the community. Our Social Justice Institute currently holds forums and educational opportunities that we make available to the public, and we will continue to do that. Now in the Zoom era, it's just virtual invitations that when we can meet in person again, it will be tickets. Healthcare, with the 4 new graduate level programs that we plan to launch in the new building, there will be opportunities to do speech assessments for the neighborhood, as well as to give them interventions if they are found to have a speech disorder. Our occupational therapy program, which we hope to have accredited, will do programs related to aging in place. If you are not able to move to an assisted living center and you want to stay in your home, they will teach you economical ways to make your home more comfortable. They will also teach fall prevention, as well as give some pediatric care resources for first-time parents or parents that just didn't get it right the first time. I like to throw that in there as a little joke. With technology, we are working to find a way to bring access to Wi-Fi to the neighborhood in a way that it can be not restricted. So we don't necessarily want to have people come to the computer labs because we know that we would have to restrict those hours too greatly because our students are using them. So we're working with the community to understand if that's working with the corner more on Wi-Fi, or even possibly partnering with somebody like MetaMesh, who has instituted Wi-Fi in other communities such as Uptown. We don't really get into affordable housing, but we will do financial literacy education and be more of an advocate for keeping housing affordable in the neighborhood. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the community to ask questions. And thank you for having us this evening and listening to our presentation.
So again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll go through them. So a couple that I've seen in the chat is people are asking, do you have a sense, do you know how many faculty or staff live in South or West Oakland now? And what would your, would you have any goals, or, you know, what would you imagine that to be like?
We would want to work with the community on what those goals were, because when we presented when we were in front of West Oakland in June of 2019, the idea wasn't very well received. The community had some concerns. So we would want to sit down with you and make sure that we have appropriate goals in place that are not too overwhelming. Again, housing really isn't in our wheelhouse, so we would really be relying on OPDC to help us with that information.
Which we certainly can do. Can you tell the community maybe in some way to quantify the traffic enforcement at 5th and Robinson that you talk about? Is there some way of quantifying the number of tickets or citations that you issue? And maybe can you provide that to the community on a regular basis?
We can start reporting it monthly, and as expected, the number of people that we stop has gone down significantly since the pandemic. So we're not stopping as many people as we were this time last year, but those are things that we can report on if the community wants us to. Okay,
yeah, if you get that to us, we can distribute it. So, and then there's a large comment in the chat. If St. Agnes Center were located in Venice or Rome or Paris, it would not be at risk of demolition, with architecture by John Combs, murals designed by Leiftochter, and stained glass windows designed by Sauter. St. Agnes Center is a spiritual art museum with world-class art. The murals are extraordinary. St. Agnes Center is transcendental in feeling, a complete work of great art in every way. Few universities would tear down a beautiful art museum and destroy the art within. Right now, Carlow University is the home of St. Agnes Center. If the St. Agnes Center is lost, this is a loss to the heritage of Carlow and a statement that art has little value in our current world. It would be a loss to the Oakland community and represent an unwillingness to search for deeper commitment for alternatives.
Well, I think that when we came to OPDC's community meeting the last time, which was just 2 months ago, we spent a good amount of time discussing this and the imperatives for our ability to grow that are making the demolition of the building a necessity. We've spent a great deal of time deliberating about this. And there is a consensus at the university, both among our leadership and our board of trustees, and this decision's been made. So we know that it's impossible to please everybody, but.
There's another comment in the chat related to community benefits. So comment on the community benefits. There is overwhelming community support for preservation of St. Agnes. And then a question of community can only access the playground at night. And
on the weekends.
On the weekends. About a commitment to public art while destroying historic murals. And Carlow used former church as a venue without changes to the structure. So I think those are comments about the community benefit portion of and some of the things presented.
Thank you. Is there a question in there? I mean, our intention for the playground will be that it's a shared resource that's available in the evenings and on weekends, but until the St. Agnes School building is renovated and converted into the Early Learning Center, there will not be competition for use of the playground. So it would be available more broadly until that happens. So that's probably several years from now before we get to that project.
And a West Oakland resident who lives on Robinson Street says that it's very difficult to cross Robinson Street to access the playground if you live on the other side of the street. So pedestrian safety would need to be addressed for accessing the playground.
Yeah. And I think we're fortunate to have our own police force, and they're already active on that street, as we've discussed with the traffic management. And when we have an active property on that site, that will give them even more reason to be active there.
And then a comment from a resident on Chesterfield who welcomes the development, even though it's sad to see an older building torn down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since we have two other presentations at our meeting tonight, if there's anybody else who's able and wants to say something, to put something in the chat now, I think that would be great. Elena, I see you have your hand up. Is there not something you can put in the chat?
I think it's too long to type, actually. Can I just ask it now?
Okay.
I noticed that the traffic study didn't include the large intersection at Kraft and the Boulevard of the Allies, where most of those cars from the parking garage are going to end up. That intersection already gets gridlocked. So why was it left out of the traffic study?
That intersection actually was part of the traffic study and is addressed by the BRT
it didn't have a dot on it on your picture.
Oh, let me see if that's so. Oh, it does. It does. Let's go back to that slide, and you can see that there is a. Let's go back another and another. There we are, and here it is. I can only control my own arrow, and I can't control yours. But Emily, if you could indicate the Robinson and 5th intersection, which is covered with a blue dot.
No, I was talking about Kraft and the Boulevard of the Allies.
Oh, Kraft and the Allies. Oh, no. I thought you meant Robinson and 5th. I'm sorry. Kraft and Allies was not part of the study area that was required by the city. It's often a judgment call as to how far a study area expands, and as you get further away from the site, impact dissipates. And so in this case, for the master plan, that intersection was not included in the study. There will be a new definition of study area and things to be studied when the P3 development to which you refer, that'll have the garage, goes down to the city for scoping for what must be studied. And so that will be addressed again, and we'll see what the scope of study comes out for with that P3 development.
So that's determined by the city, DOMI?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We have another question about what happened to the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission marker at St. Agnes, and why was it taken down?
We took it down because there was confusion about recognizing the architect versus recognizing the building, and the state came to retrieve the sign on November 5th.
And what's the difference in development capacity of the site with and without the church? And would you be willing to share capacity studies by your architect?
It's not about capacity, it's about the land valuation, because we're entering into a ground lease with the developer. We're not selling the site. So in addition to needing to build additional floors in that building and having to remove the sacred items, again, it's more of a land value as opposed to density. So and it's the location on the site as well. If it was at the corner, there would be more opportunity for us to integrate it into the site, but it sits at the middle of the site. It conflicts with the loading that we want to do on Robinson Street. We were told that we were going to be limited on the amount of curb cuts that we would get on Fifth Avenue. We don't want to mix passenger vehicles with loading. So there are many site constraints that led us to this decision.
And then we have another comment related to that, that Carlow didn't remove items from the structure to use the structure as a venue.
I don't understand.
That was in response to something that Emily had said.
Actually, I don't think we realized the weight of the items of devotion being in a secular building until this year. We have used the building for student mass, but it is not a used building. The building was just relegated this May, and we will now work with the diocese on a plan to remove that stuff.
So do you have a date for your planning commission briefing and hearings?
We do not have a date yet, but we can make that available to OPDC when we get those.
Okay. Once we have that date, we will let everybody know. And there's also, we'll include the links at the end of the last slide in our presentation, but there's also a feedback form on our website. Again, if you want the opportunity to provide additional input or ask additional questions, or somebody who wasn't able to attend the meeting can offer feedback through a Google form that can be found on the website, on our website. So we'll move on to our next presentation. So we have a presentation from the owner of a vacant lot at Boundary Street and Yarrow Way. And Mr. Liang, are you here to present, or Mr. Pelling? You can go ahead and...
it's the JAUSA.
Okay.
Yausa is at yahoo.com, I think, is our email address here, right?
Okay.
JIAUSA. Can you hear me?
I see you there.
Right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Can you turn your video on so
I'm going to try.
People to follow your presentation if they can see you talking?
It says the host won't allow me because the host has stopped it. JIAUSA.
I think because Emily was hosting for a little while, maybe she has to give it back.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry for the city background. I'm not sure how to turn that off. This is all.
You're not a cat.
Somewhat new. Yeah, that's good, right? Not a cat, number one. So this is the subject site. My name is Kendall Pelling. I'm serving as a consultant to the development team to help them figure out zoning and community process and explain and present today. So this is the site. This is a site that in the past has been used legally as a construction, storage, and parking site, a place for storing construction trailers and construction materials and parking. And so its past uses are not compatible with the residential neighborhood where it is. So the developer's goal is to develop 6 new homes that would be for sale, single family homes that would fit into the style and density of the surrounding Panther Hollow neighborhood. This is a rendering of the homes with the draft facade design. The facade design is not final, and the developers look forward to working with OPDC and the community to do a final design review should the zoning variances be approved for the project. And you'll see that there are 3 stories in the front, with the lowest level being a parking garage entrance, And then they have a half story, which is behind the front of the properties. They were designed this way so that they would feel like 3-story buildings in the front and step into the hill as they go, because it's a very steep site. Go to the next slide. This is the site plan where you can see the 6 homes and the setbacks that are being proposed. And so the zoning if you were going to develop on this property without a zoning variance, you wouldn't be able to build these homes. So the zoning variance is to have a smaller setback than the zoning requires in the front. But the setback that is being proposed is larger than the other homes that sit on the same street. So the developer has tried to make that front setback as generous as possible. And then the rear setback is within line of the code. And the rear setback is where it is because there is a hill behind it, and the neighboring property has a 2-story brick garage that if you build too close to it could collapse. So the rear setback physically has to be where it's at. And each home has a garage so that it'll be attractive to home buyers and so that they won't create a parking problem on the street. And the height and style of the homes is designed to be similar to that of the other Panther Hollow homes. Next slide. Next slide. So because the developers were looking at what could be done if they didn't get any zoning variances, some initial community feedback said that they didn't want to allow any variances. So they had their architect draw up what could be developed, what they call by right, which is no variances required. And so this design shows 5 different buildings. Each building would only be 3 stories tall. And so that, as looking at the cost to build it and thinking about the attractiveness of it, developers feel that they would not be attractive for sale homes if they were built to a rigid by right standard with no zoning variances. So that would leave them with the only financially feasible approach to do a rental project. That would mean just market rate rentals to whoever rents them. This is not what the developer wants to build. It does not want to do a rental project. And it's been clear that Oakland doesn't want to have rental units built on this site. So that's the problem. To economically build on the site, it seems like there either needs to be variances to allow a home ownership project, or the only development is a rental approach that seems to work. Next slide. This is a view from the county website map that just shows the density of the houses that follow down Boundary Street. You'll see that they have no setback off the sidewalk, sometimes only a couple feet if they have any setback. And you'll see that they're all townhouses or densely attached on each street. Next slide. This is a view of the front of those houses, and you can see that they are 3 stories or more. They're tall houses, and they're also built close together. Next slide. This is another view where you see the development site, and you also see the house on the corner, which is a 3.5-story house, which is typical for this area. And the proposed houses would be a similar height to this house when you count the garage and then the living, the living areas of it. Next slide. And this is another view on from Panther Hollow. This is just down, and you can see the context of 3 to 4 story plus buildings on that street. If you look down to the end, you'll see more houses that are tall Victorian 3.5-story houses. These houses would be just 3 stories in the front, which are a garage level and 2 levels of living. So they would be within a 3-story height at the front of the house and only step up toward the back 2/3 of the house. Next slide. This is a view on Isis Way. You'll see the garage on the right with the art on the door. That is just showing how the existing houses on Isis Way are built right up to almost to the asphalt with only a few feet away. And the developer's proposal has more of a setback than the current houses have off Isis Way. So you would have a little bit of space for a driveway going into the garage. Next slide. This is a cut from the Oakland master plan, and where the blue arrow is pointed is where the subject site is, and it is at the intersection of a section that's called for new market rate housing development and encourage home ownership. So this is market rate home ownership development. Next slide. This is another page from the plan that talks about more specific goals for the Panther Hollow area, and it calls for developing Junction Hollow as a trailhead neighborhood. Developers feel that if we're doing for sale homes in that place, that's consistent with having people who are owning homes, living there, and taking advantage of the amenities of being within Oakland and at the trail network as a homeowner. So we feel that it's fairly consistent with the plan. Next slide. This is the draft design. This is just a simple design to show the height that would be. So the height and the variances proposed is for having a pitched roof on the houses. Should the community design process seek to have a flat roof or something that was shorter, that's possible. I think a pitched roof makes for a durable house, and most of the other houses in Panther Hollow have pitched roofs. So, but the developer is not wedded to this style for the houses and is happy to work with OPDC and others to come up with a design that would create the most attractive and saleable market rate houses for this spot. They're not stuck on a modern design or a classical traditional design. They're open to the best thoughts about how to do that.
Mighty wide of them.
And then total height, we'll check on that. But the ceiling heights, the main living height would have a 9-foot ceiling. The garage level would have a 9-foot ceiling height as well. And the living area the top level will be either an 8 or a 9-foot ceiling. So the zoning variance documentation has it's only a few feet short of a few feet over the zoning limit for homes in this location. So the developer probably could have gotten under that zoning limit by putting a flat roof on the top of it, but it seems like that probably would not make sense for design since they're not trying to put a roof deck or anything on them. So yeah, so you can see the single family houses, one door going in. There's kind of like a Juliet balcony slated for that front bedroom on the third level, I guess, if you count the garage as a first level. Next slide. This is the rear of the houses. This will be just a little bit from this is just a little bit, this is a view from the rear. And so about 15 to 20 feet from the back of the houses will be a retaining wall. And so each house will have a patio area. And also right now it's showing the kind of Juliet balcony at each of the rear windows for more light and air, but that's optional. Those don't have to be there. That's another thing that would be reviewed in the design process. Next slide. This is a view of the Isis Way houses you'll see in the front of them. The Isis Way houses are they look like 3-story houses in the front off Isis Way. They're a little narrower than the homes that front on the other street. And the rear of the houses is, because of the way the hillside works, there is a lower level room. And that's why the rear facade looks a bit different, just because of how the hillside is there. Because the rear of these properties is replacing existing retaining walls that are on the site. so that this site can be permanently stable. That's why the rear facade looks funny, like you stretched it, because these the foundation is being built into the hill to be essentially be the permanent retaining wall, so that it won't go anywhere. Yep, and again, these Juliet balconies are optional. Next one. And this is another view of the front of it, looking down, so you can see the scale and massing and size of the houses in context with the other houses around them. And yeah, so the fundamental issue with the zoning code is that the zoning code is layered over a neighborhood of existing houses. And many of the existing homes in this neighborhood would not comply with the zoning code if they were built today. They would be too tall. They would not have proper setbacks. They would frankly not be allowed to be built without a zoning variance. So all the developer's really seeking is develop zoning variances that are similar to the existing houses that are in the neighborhood, and they're trying to do the minimum change to that zoning variance. So that's why there's single family homes. You know, there's been some thought of, well, could you do for sale condo units on this site? Well, the zoning, to do a zoning for for sale condo units, you would have to actually change the zoning. And it's a more significant zoning variance than just allowing for dimensional variances to setback and shape of the lots. So, so that's all I'd like to ask for questions, and glad to answer any questions.
Kendall, if you could clarify that you're not only going for dimensional variances, you would actually need a lot size per unit variance.
Yes. So the reason for the lot size variance is that you'll see that the corner house where the road bends up behind the rental properties that are behind the 4-story rental properties to the right, you'll see there's green space with trees there. So the houses need to be stepped back from that corner. So the corner house has a very wide lot, which is far above the lot size requirements. And similarly, the other houses that have a side setback have a lot size that is plenty big. It's the middle houses that have a slightly smaller lot size than the required. It is within just a little bit. So we feel that having the extra setback on the corner is worth it. It's actually more setback than is the minimum required. So you could theoretically take these houses and slide them closer to that corner and equalize the lot sizes and have lots that were equal to or within the standard. But then you would have houses built to the corner of that alley, and it just wouldn't be as nice. You wouldn't have as much green space around them, and that alley would feel more like an alley and less like a street. And since these are for sale homes, we want that alley to feel like a nice street where you would want to have your address at.
I think when we've done the math, however, like, you know, if you look at the whole lot area available and the number of units being proposed and divide that by the amount of lot size per unit, you are required to get a variance for that based on the number of density. So I think that's what, you know, is an issue and always has been an issue with this development. Really, it hasn't, you know, people are asking in the comments and the chats, has it changed? You know, you've done some work to change some of the components, but that issue I think still remains to be the same. Yeah,
we looked hard at that lot size. If you applied the zoning code lot size requirement to the existing houses in Panther Hollow, a substantial number of them would not be compliant. So we're asking for a zoning variance for those couple of lots that are technically a little smaller than standard, than the zoning code allows.
I don't think we have a lot of questions. We have more comments in the chat. So I'll just summarize them. That, you know, that again, it's the same concern we've heard at prior discussions of this project, that there's no control, that they would not be rentals, even though, you know, the developer is stating an intention that they be owner occupied. And that has been multiple comments in the chat today, and that's been the concern brought up at other community process.
Yeah, and the developer has made clear that they will make sure that the first sale is to an owner occupant. These are going to be market rate homes. We believe the economics of renting these homes will not work, especially as a market rate for sale house. So we will glad to create deed covenants that require the first sale to be to an owner occupant. Developers are worried about creating longer term deed restrictions on these properties, and there was an idea brought up by Oakland Planning and Development to bring these market rate homes into the Oakland Community Land Trust, which the developer explored and really thought about. They're just a little worried about being the first people to attempt to make a market rate for sale community land trust home and be able to sell those and be able to sell them within a reasonable time. That's the fear, and they're not aware of any market rate homes that have been sold within a community land trust structure in the Pittsburgh area. So yeah, they just feel that that would be an extra risk that they don't feel like taking.
Just so people know, that is something that we offered to work with the developer to have them be part of the CLT.
Yeah, and they thought that was a very creative way to try to solve the problem. It just came down to a risk analysis for the developers.
And just so people know, that would be a way that they would be permanently owner occupied and could never become rentals. There was a question earlier about, would there be a curb cut at the front of each house?
That's correct. Each house would have a curb cut. The 3D modeling is a bit crude at the first level and wasn't able to show that. But yes, each house will have a curb cut in the front, off the street that slopes upwards, and off the street in the back. Yeah, and those curb cuts, of course, would have to go through public works approval, and that process has been done already. So it's so there would be curb cuts there. This site also currently has no sidewalk in front of these houses the way it currently is, but the developer will be building a sidewalk. They have a street tree and landscaping plan as well that will comply with the code. So whereas now you can't walk on a sidewalk past this site, when these homes were built, you'd be able to have a full walk all the way around on a sidewalk.
And so let's see, I think there was a comment that there is a market rate home already in the Oakland CLT, and that is true. It's not new construction, but it is a market rate home that's not resale formula restricted. And that was sold into the Oakland CLT in 2019. That is true. So I think that the rest of the comments are more feedback of, concern on the part of the community in terms of, the neighboring property owner concerned about the scale blocking light and sun on his property, concern about rental, that these would become rental units.
Yeah, so I think one thing to think about is that the developer's been waiting a long time and working very hard to try to make a for sale project work. If they were trying to do rental housing, they could have proposed a project which did not require any variances. So they are very committed to doing that. It could have been 2 years ago to put a 10-unit rental project on this site with no variances required. The whole reason they're going for these variances is to make a for sale product work. And I think that if you think there's for sale homes built all over the region without any restrictions that stay for sale homes. And we think that with the economics of housing here, that there's no reason to expect that these would be any different than that.
And then there's a question of what communication you've had with OPDC since a date in future, but I think the person probably means November 5th of 2020 and not 2021. So you could discuss that if you'd like.
Sure. So we explored, there was a scheduled zoning hearing, which was long delayed because of COVID and scheduling. So that's why it's been so long since the last community meeting. And when we started that hearing, the zoning board asked that we meet with the community again to try to make sure we had explored every option to try to work out concerns about the property. So what we did is we met with OPDC and we tried to think creatively about what could be done here. We explored a proposal that could bring all the properties into the Oakland Community Land Trust. We explored trying to think about if there is ways to do some of the units as affordable, some of the units as market rate, and I tried to think through all different approaches. So where the developers at now is they feel like just building these 6 houses and seeking to get the zoning variances and doing these for sale houses is the most straightforward way to go without funding challenges or other concerns. So I must say we appreciated the creativity that Oakland Planning and Development had in trying to think through all these options.
I think we've covered the items that people discussed in the chat, and even about what address is the property. I don't really know, but it's we'll use what the city. The in there.
Zoning describes what the title is based on the technical lot name, as the county website says. So addressing will change the addresses when new homes are built. So they'll have a new address. We have no control over that.
So do you have a schedule of going for a zoning board hearing?
Has zoning told us okay, after this meeting that zoning said they would schedule for a hearing. So probably sometime within a month and a half or so. Late March, beginning of April is what zoning is communicating to the developer.
Okay, as soon as we have that information, we can put it on our website and let people know. If you have that date, you can shoot me an email and let me know when you get it.
And all the plans will be, zoning will have all the plans to be viewed in detail. And if anybody has trouble, reading plans or things, just communicate through OPDC and Wanda. We're happy to make sure people get readable copies of them.
We can post them on the website. If you send them to us, we can add them there.
Okay, sure.
We do have yet one more presentation, so I think we will move on to the next presentation. Thank you very much, Kendall. I'm going to check my notes here. Bear with me for a second of the sorry, the name of the person. We have Thomas Pierce to present of UPMC planning to do some renovations to these buildings on 5th Avenue. Just to wrap up a couple before you start, sorry, a couple of questions. We will post things on our website as we have them available, so keep checking back. We attempt to get the notes up in a few days, and then survey, it sort of depends on how many responses we get in, and we'll do them every few days. We'll download, more responses and update that file. So, okay, Mr. Pierce, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. I understand that my colleague, Bill Simchek, may be on board as well, and would it be possible for him to assist in the presentation?
Absolutely. Anybody who's presenting for this project can turn video on and unmute and feel free to discuss the project.
Okay. Yes, this is Bill Simchek. I'm with MCF Architects with Tom Paris here. And also on the call or on the attending the meeting are Franco Trivella and Sean McCloskey from UPMC. The project really isn't that complicated. There's two buildings that are part of the Children's Hospital for UPMC that are in Oakland. And it's the Children's Hospital Oakland office building and the Oakland Medical Building they're at 3414 and 3420 on Fifth Avenue. If you want to go to the next slide. The general scope of the project is we're remediating the elevations. That's the masonry work needs to be repaired and restored. The drive-it sections around Oakland office building, that would be on the west side in the rear. We're planning on restoring and doing a resurfacing. And we're replacing both of the roofs on both of the buildings. There's a plaza on the one side of the Oakland the office building that is having some drainage problems that we're going to correct. So there's some remediation there. And also the parking lot that's currently on the side of the building is going to be repaved, relined so that the parking is in compliance with the city requirements. And the entrance to the parking lot is going to be shifted to the west a little bit just to make it a little easier to circulate into the parking lot. The elevators within the inside of the building are being upgraded. And in addition to that, on the Children's Hospital, the 4-story building, the elevator equipment room is going to be installed right next to the elevator shaft. So it'll be sort of a small addition on the very lower level that would allow it to access right into the elevator shaft to make it work better and to sort of minimize the downtime of the elevator. If you want to go to the next slide. This is just an overhead view of the sites, the parking lot, the plaza, the office building, and the medical building. And the main entrance for the building is off of Yarrow Way. So that's in the rear of the building rather than the Fifth Avenue side. If you want to go to the next slide. These are the views at Yarrow Way that shows the entrance. If you can see the blue awning with the 3420, that's the main entrance into the facility. So, you know, the goal is to sort of do a restoration of the facade, change the color of the drive-it building to sort of be more match more with the brick of the office building to sort of make it more uniform and make it sort of one type of facility. If you want to go to the next slide. This is the site plan. It shows the roofing work on the two buildings and the relining of the paving of the parking lot and the shifting of the entrance to the parking lot away from the building, which allows a couple more handicap spaces to be closer to the building, which was one of our goals. If you want to go to the next building. These are the existing elevations, so you can see what the building currently looks like. The north elevation is the Fifth Avenue side. The east elevation is the side of the office building, the 2-story office building with the 4-story building behind it. In the south elevation shows the Yarrow Way elevation. And the west elevation shows the plaza deck, which is elevated from the parking lot and the side of the main building. If you want to go to the next slide, that shows the restoration. We're doing full masonry restoration of the masonry on both buildings. The stone will be repointed and cleaned. all of the elevations will be cleaned as well. And the brick, there's some brick that needs to be reset that are shifted over time that needs to be replaced, and some of the lintels on the windows need to be replaced. And if you can see the color change of on the west elevation, you can see the color change of the Drive-It building, the Ethos building on that side. And in the rear, you can see the color change that tends to match the existing building. One of the alternates that we have is to coat the existing red brick building so that it sort of makes a more unified building, and it'll eliminate a lot of the previous patching, masonry patches that are different colored bricks and things like that. If you want to go to the next slide. This is an elevation that shows from the Yarrow Way side, looking at the building of the Ethos building and the change of color with the entrance to the medical building next to it. And if you look where the elevator shaft is, right to the left of that shows the small little addition that would be the elevator equipment room. There's parking underneath the plaza deck that's existing, and that all stays the same. Tom, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did. We're also recommending, I don't know, Wanda, are you toggling the presentation?
It's my colleague, Kathy.
Okay, Kathy, could you go back to slide number 4, please? That is, I'm looking for actually, yeah, slide 4, if you don't mind. It would be the Yarrow Way elevation.
Side, the photograph of Yarrow Way goes up. Yeah, that's the one.
This side shows the current condition of the IFAS and the color scheme. If we can go back then to that slide again, I think it's 9, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. We're trying to, this receives a lot of Western sun, and the current condition is it's really a bleached out area when you're there. And we were attempting to create more warmth to this facade. And that is what was leading the effort for the color change. We're also going to change the existing blue metal. That would be, I'll go ahead and I'll draw it, but this is currently a blue color. And we were suggesting that we would recoat this and be silver. And we were also going to paint and recoat the masonry below a gray color that would be compatible with the masonry. Traditionally, you know, this is like a suburban building almost. You have the formal front entrance, but this is where all the pedestrians enter into the building. And so we were attempting to create more uniformity there and enhance the user experience of the patients that actually go into the medical building. And that's primarily the color, was the change in the colors. We think that providing new paving over the existing paved area is going to create more homogeneity. And I believe that we have limited site lighting that we're putting in place as well. We relocated the parking control equipment. There's been numerous accidents inside this parking lot, and a lot of that is because there's only 17 feet behind some of these parking spaces, which is a very tight. The city recommends, I believe, a minimum of 21, if not 23 feet. And so we're attempting to create more gracious parking. We were able to meet the current numbers, I believe, in this scheme. So Bill, that was my comments on this. I also, you know, Bill mentioned that this facade would receive a coating that would be terracotta-like. It's a mineral-based coating. It's not a paint job. And that means that the application of it is permanent in nature. It won't peel, and it's will be color fast for at least 20 years. And with those two enhancements to the facades, we thought we'd create a much more pleasing alley experience, if you will. There is now a 6 or 7 story apartment building on the backside of this alley facing this building right now. Care was given in our site lighting so that we are in compliance with the City of Pittsburgh regulations, but more importantly, we didn't want light to bleed into the apartment windows. So.
Okay, if you want to go to the next slide, that just shows the view of the, sort of a nighttime view of the Fifth Avenue side. The restored stone, restored masonry is all the same as they exist now, and just cleaned and repointed. And the light, we're changing the lighting on the building a little bit. The existing lighting was an indirect lighting that was behind metal sort of valances that have rusted out and have sort of gotten used. So we were trying to just accent the facade a bit. If you want to go to the next slide, I think it's just a night vision of the back side that shows the building at night. The next slide. This is the colors that are available, and we had reviewed with UPMC, and those are the colors that were selected. If you look at the masonry color coding, the color that was selected is sort of, they tried to make a uniform appearance of the buildings on the Yarrow Way side so that it all looks like one facility rather than 2 distinct buildings.
This coating material that we've described on the back of the medical building has been used in Europe on some of their more prominent historic buildings. And I understand it's also been used even on the White House. I mean, it's a high quality product. It's, again, not painted. It allows vapor transmission so that there won't be peeling or spalling of the masonry behind it. The existing medical building has undergone probably 3 generations of masonry restoration, and there's no way that it would be cost prohibitive to remove all the bricks and come in with a homogeneous brick. So this is a high quality, I think, middle ground to establish uniformity on the masonry. And as Bill mentioned also, the south parapet of the medical building, our structural engineer has recommended that we would replace almost a 40-foot long area that would be close to 8 feet in height. So we're going to have, again, another patch on that building because of structural deficiencies. The existing steel lintels above the windows and the line there are all, they call it oxide jacking, where they've rusted and actually are prying the brick up. And if it goes untreated, it would actually become a pedestrian hazard with probably in the next 5 years.
If you want to go to the next slide, and that just shows the different colors of the metal cornice that's available, and we had settled on the silver. So, and that sort of is a description of the project itself. I guess if you go to the next slide, it just opened up for questions if anybody has any questions.
I can.
Not a lot of activity in the chat, but if you could answer the one about how does the new coating avoid pointing?
It wouldn't avoid the pointing. The bricks would all have to be pointing. We'd have to reset it so that it's all stable. And then we would add the coating just the coating is more or less to just give the facade a standard sort of uniform appearance. So it's not a matter, we would still have to repoint and do all the masonry work, restoration work that would be required on those elevations.
And from a process point of view, you are required to go to Planning Commission, is that right?
That's right. And they told us right after this, they schedule us into that time. Okay. So I don't have a time, but I'm assuming it would probably be the next commissioning meeting. I think that's what they had told us.
You don't mean you'd have the next one in 2 weeks? I don't know that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I have to check on that. That sounds like it's pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when you have a date, let us know, and we can update the page on our website about this, and we can let people know.
Okay. Yep. I'll let you know as soon as I hear.
And then a question. So the facade of the Serb National Federation building is being saved.
I don't know historically if that was a former use of one of these buildings, but I'm uncertain as to that comment.
Well, all of the facades are being, restored. We're not taking away any of it. We're just restoring the masonry as it is.
3414 5th.
Okay, that's the 4-story office building. So that facade is going to be restored right to where it was before. We're not doing anything that would be. And that facade really is in pretty good shape. It's a matter of cleaning, and there's some repointing that we have to do on the upper stories. But other than that, that facade will be just restored as it is.
And the property adjacent to that on the east side also will just undergo cleaning, but I think that our project includes full repointing for these areas.
Yeah, the stone, all of the stone on 3420 gets repointed and cleaned. So when it's done, it should all be, pretty much like new, we would hope.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I don't see any other questions or comments in the chat. And again, once we have your date for Planning Commission, we can let people know if you just let us know when you get the date.
Okay. All right, we'll do.
Okay.
Do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you very much for your presentation.
Yep.
I think we have a final slide of updates and things that are coming up. So we have Oak Watch on Wednesday, March 17th. And then the next Oakland-Wide meeting is at the end of March on March 30th. And make sure you follow us on social media. Anytime you can always email any of us on staff, or you can send an email to questions@opdc.org. And there's a question of, do we save the chat and post it? Typically, we just record. We record the meeting as though it's a meeting in terms of questions that are answered. So I don't know that it's common that we always save the chat. We could probably start doing that. Yes. Okay. Thanks everyone for attending tonight, and keep following the website as we have updates on projects. We'll update the information there and post documents there as we have them. And again, thanks to my colleague Kathy for running the whole all the meeting tonight. And thanks everybody for attending and for all your engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.